This is the roll. Oh my god, are we about to get zips? Oh!
Oh my goodness! Oh my god, it's so nice in here too.
Yes. Wow. So today is July 14th, and we have just a single session on the agenda for today. It's our hour and a half of spray wall. So the last spray wall session we had to cut a bit short because my joints were kind of aching and they were hurting to the point where they were like feeling a bit tweaky, and I was worried that I might hurt myself. And just climbing on the sustained overhang for like too long, like with no relief on the fingers and having to grip every hold really hard was just too much. So we bailed on the spray wall and we went and climbed on some comp boulders that weren't too intense on the hands. So today I was hoping that I could get a proper spray wall session in, which ended up being the case. I found that my joints, so they got a bit better after the spray wall day, like for the next day when we were campusing, they didn't really hurt. But after a rest day, coming back today, they were still kind of hurting a bit. And I think my fingers are just taking a long time to adjust to the new training volume. So they were still a bit achy today, a bit sore. I found that it wasn't too bad to the point where I thought I was gonna hurt myself. It was just like, it just caused me to kind of underperform on these boulders. So like all these boulders in this session, again, I'm trying to continue with the repeat session that I was gonna have last time. I picked a few boulders that I already sent and I was gonna try and repeat them, which is what we're doing again today. So like I already know how my body is like supposed to feel on these boulders and like what moves I usually cruise through. But that wasn't happening on any of the boulders today. I definitely wasn't cruising through any moves. Yeah, my fingers just felt a bit weak. But the pain was just enough to the point where I could have like a decent session on the spray wall. And I definitely have to start forcing myself to kind of do what the program is saying. Like in the past few days, you see I've been making a bunch of modifications. Like I'll cut sessions short, or like I just decided to switch to 2 arm hangs instead of 1 arm hangs. And like I don't, like sure I'll make adjustments to my program, but it's not something I do all the time. This is pretty unusual to make this many adjustments. Like yeah, the pain that I've been feeling in my fingers and the slow, like the amount of time that it's taking for my body to adjust to this training load is definitely pretty abnormal. And it's not something that I've really experienced before. This is like quite the slow introduction, like especially with the fingers in particular. So hopefully soon we'll be able to just start hopping on the program and doing exactly what it says rather than having to make all these modifications. So that first boulder was the only boulder we actually ended up trying for real the last spray wall session we had. I'm counting that boulder as like as a repeat boulder for this session, even though I actually haven't sent it. I've fallen on the finish move like a bunch of times. And it's funny, even though I was feeling pretty weak on the last spray wall session, if you noticed, I actually stuck the last move individually, which I had never done before actually. Like even when I was feeling strong and working that boulder in the past and trying the last move individually, I'd never stuck it. So I actually stuck it for the first time last spray wall session. But yeah, I made a bit of progress on it this session. I was able to get up to the finish hold, the finish move a couple times, but couldn't quite stick the finish. And then I kind of just stopped trying that boulder in the beginning of the year when I started dropping the finish move every time, and it was just like I wasn't getting any more value from the bottom, working the bottom of the boulder over and over again. But we're trying it again for the sake of our repeat session. So now we're moving on to the second boulder. I gave this like 2 or 3 tries the last spray wall session, but this move here in the middle with like this unwind off of this crimp with the toe hook, the way you have to load this crimp with like just your fingertips and it kind of gets better as you unwind to the left was like way too hard on my joints. So that's when I realized like, well, okay, yeah, there's like a serious problem with my joints, and I have to go like just give them a break and climb on the comp wall. But it was good enough today that I could try this boulder. This one's a lot of fun. Like I said, yeah, there's this cool toe hook move at the beginning here where you're on this undercling and you use toe hook to kind of pull you over to the left and get this pretty positive pocket. And then this next move here, the jump to the sloper, I have only stuck once, and it was on the send go of this boulder back in like March or April. I had tried this move a bunch individually. I never stuck it, but in one session I was feeling really strong and I got like super fired up to give a send attempt, and I stuck it from the ground, and then I sent the boulder. And I think this is probably the hardest boulder I sent of the ones that I sent on this wall at the beginning of this year. So this was like the real test piece. I felt like quite far off from sticking this move on this session, but I still tried to work it as much as I could to kind of get the muscle memory back, so that maybe in a couple more sessions on the spray wall, I could be able to send it. And so moving on, I think I've mentioned this before as well, is like normally throughout like all my sessions, whether it's like on the spray wall or on comp boulders, I always try to do like the more, like any boulders with like some intense crimps or more finger-based boulders near the beginning of my session when my fingers are fresh and not like getting tired and sore. Like this is just something I've always done for years and years as kind of like an injury prevention tactic. So I did like the two first boulders I did at the beginning of the session here kind of had some crimps, and so I started with them, and then as I go later and later into my session, I start climbing on more open-handed boulders, so that like it's just harder to injure yourself when your hands are tired on like open-handed boulders. So here we're trying another boulder I sent, a pinchy, like an open-handed boulder with some pinches. This move here in the middle is like probably the hardest move. Jumping off this yellow slope to this pinch. It's kind of a weird move too, because it's right in the kind of seam of the wall, so there's a bit of an angle change, which makes like for kind of a weird swing to catch. So out of the like 4 boulders that we're trying in this session, that are all repeats, I'd say this is probably the easiest. I probably sent this one the quickest. It maybe took me like 3 sessions to send. It took me a while to stick this move in the middle here, and then it's kind of a long boulder, so the last move is also quite hard, and so it took me a while to build up the fitness to be able to stick this last move from the bottom to kind of have like the power endurance to send it. And like for reference, I'd say since these aren't like competition style boulders, I can put a grade on these boulders more accurately. So I'd say this one is probably around 10-11, V10-11. And then like that last boulder we were, like the boulder I was trying before this, when I said it was hardest, was probably like V12, probably like a hard V12. And like this is just my opinion. As you can see that with the spray wall sessions, I mostly train alone. I haven't like met too many people to like session on the spray wall with in Germany yet. So this is kind of just like my opinion. I'm the only one trying these boulders, but with all my experience, that's kind of what I'd say we're at. Like for reference, all these spray wall boulders that I'm getting on are probably between like V11 to 13 at like that when we're like in our peak fitness. I'm probably like working like V13 on the spray wall. So you see on that boulder, I was able to drop the finish from the start, which I felt like was as close as I was going to get to sending the boulder in that session. That attempt really tired me out, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do anything better than that. So I decided to move on. But that was kind of reassuring a bit, like at least my pinching power and like open-handed power doesn't need that much longer to catch up. Like I felt like I was pretty similar, like I've had a similar fitness on that boulder as I did like in the beginning of the year, whereas like the other fingery based boulders, like I was just underperforming a lot more than I had in the past. So that was good. And so after like that super tiring attempt, like that boulder was pretty long, I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to try like very long boulders. And so I decided, okay, I'll try this boulder here, which actually isn't a repeat. It's a project. I haven't sent this one yet. And just like trying this boulder allowed me to just work like a couple moves at a time, since there was this move here that I'm trying to the yellow sloper, this jump. I haven't actually stuck it before, so I could work this move individually, and it's just kind of like it's all like I find with like every training session, but especially with spray wall sessions, you really have to manage your energy levels and the amount of energy that you spend well in order to get as much value from the session as you can. So I knew that if I was trying long boulders at this point, I wasn't going to be doing much. I was probably just going to be tiring out on easy moves, and like the goal with these spray wall sessions is to be trying like moves that are really hard for you and to like test your maximum power. So I said, in order to get the maximum value from the session, now that I'm tired, I should try to just do like 1 or 2 moves at a time that are really hard. And so that's why I'm trying this boulder here that I haven't sent I can work on the crux for a while and see if I can stick the move individually. Unfortunately, even though it's kind of like a sloper that we're jumping to, this yellow hold, it's got a bit of a lip at the back of it, so you're almost kind of crimping it, and that's where I found like here, yeah, jumping to it, you have to hit the back of it and almost engage your fingers, and that's where I was feeling the weakness in my joints a bit. I felt like I couldn't stick. It was going to be impossible to stick that move for the section, so I kind of just same with the other boulders, just worked it a bit to get the muscle memory back to hopefully send it next session. So yeah, I'd been climbing for about an hour and 15 minutes at this point, and our session was an hour and a half on the spray wall minimum. But like I was working that last boulder as much as I could, and I felt like that crux move was going to be impossible to stick, and I didn't really have anything else that I could try. My hands were getting tired, so I had to make another little modification to the program, or at least like the program for today, and just say, okay, I'll do my last 15 minutes in the main gym, like on the main boulders. Like sometimes, as much as you want to stick to the program, if you have to make like a small adjustment for the day in order to get like as much value from the training day as you can, then you just have to do it. So yeah, I just said, okay, I got a couple like technical boulders that I was working in the previous day when we ditched the spray wall like super early on that I can try again for 15 minutes. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying this 8 here that I tried like once or twice at the end of that last impromptu like main wall session, and I was just kind of fell a few times at the end here, and I was just too tired really to do anything, so I stopped. But now I had a little bit more energy than I did when I was trying it last, and I was able to make some progress on it. And that wraps up today's day of training. Much better spray wall session than the last time. Still was underperforming on the boulders that I've sent in the past before, but we're getting there. We're still trying to adjust to the training volume, and hopefully next session we can, like after a few more days of recovery, I'll be able to start sending some of these boulders and hopefully making new ones soon. I wasn't planning on like repeating these boulders for this whole couple weeks, but that's kind of what it's turning into because it's taking my body a long time to adjust. But I'm not going to start making up new boulders until I'm at least like giving attempts on the boulders that I've sent in the past before, as well, like giving attempts that match the quality of attempts that I was giving earlier in the year. And then once I've like actually put like some serious effort on these boulders, then I can say, okay, my shape is where I want to be to start kind of like pushing the needle forward and making some new boulders to project. But yeah, so tomorrow is the campus day and the workout, and then we're done the first week of this 2-week training cycle.